Jake was just a janitor cleaning offices at night. When three armed men attacked his CEO, he could have hidden and stayed safe. Instead, he stepped in front of a bullet meant for her. That one brave moment changed both their lives forever. Jake Miller wiped the sweat from his face as he pushed his cleaning cart down the long hallway. It was 6 p.m. and most people had gone home from the big office building. Jake liked this quiet time. No busy people rushing around. No one looking at him like he was invisible. Jake was 35 years old and had been cleaning offices for 8 years. Ever since his wife Lisa died in a car accident, leaving him alone with his 7-year-old daughter Mia. The job didn't pay much, but it was honest work. And it let him pick up Mia from school every day. Tonight felt different though. As Jake cleaned the 20th floor, he heard angry voices coming from the big corner office. The office belonged to Sarah Chin, the CEO of the company. She was young, maybe 30, and always worked late. Jake had seen her many times. She was always nice to him. She would say, "Good evening, Jake," when other people acted like he wasn't there. Once, when Jake brought Mia to work because she was sick, Sarah had given Mia a coloring book and crayons. The voices were getting louder. Jake stopped cleaning and listened. Something was wrong. "Where is the money?" a man's voice shouted. "I told you I can't access it from here," Sarah's voice replied. She sounded scared but strong. Jake quietly moved closer to the office. Through the glass door he could see 3 men in dark clothes. One of them had a gun pointed at Sarah. She was sitting at her desk, her hands shaking. "You have 5 minutes to transfer $50 million or things will get very bad for you," the man with the gun said. Jake's heart was beating fast. He should call the police. But there was no time. He could see that the men were getting angry. Sarah was in real danger. Jake thought about his daughter Mia. She was at his mother's house doing her homework. What would happen to her if something happened to him? But then he looked at Sarah again. She was someone's daughter too. Jake remembered what his wife Lisa used to say, "Good people help when they can. That's what makes the world better." Jake made his choice. Jake opened his toolbox and took out a wrench. It wasn't much, but it was something. He took a deep breath and opened the office door. "Hey!" Jake shouted as loud as he could. The 3 men turned around, surprised. They didn't expect anyone else to be in the building. "Who are you?" the man with the gun demanded. "I'm nobody important," Jake said, stepping into the room. "Just a janitor. But I think you should leave this lady alone." The men laughed. "A janitor wants to be a hero?" one of them said. "I don't want to be a hero," Jake replied. "I just want to do the right thing." The man with the gun turned toward Jake. "Big mistake, janitor." That's when Jake moved. He threw the wrench as hard as he could, hitting the gunman in the arm. The gun went off, but the bullet went into the ceiling. Jake rushed forward and tackled the man. They fought on the floor while the other 2 men tried to help their friend. "Run!" Jake shouted to Sarah. "Get out of here." But Sarah didn't run. Instead, she pressed the emergency button under her desk. Alarms started ringing throughout the building. The fight was 3 against 1 and Jake was losing. He wasn't a big man and he wasn't a fighter. But he kept trying. He had to protect Sarah. One of the men picked up the gun that had fallen during the fight. "Enough!" the man shouted. "You want to be a hero? Let's see how heroic you feel with a bullet in you." The man pointed the gun at Sarah. Jake saw what was happening. Without thinking, he threw himself between Sarah and the gun. The bullet hit Jake in the chest. Pain shot through his body like fire. He fell to the ground, blood spreading across his work shirt. "Jake!" Sarah screamed, dropping to her knees beside him. The sound of police sirens was getting closer. The 3 men looked at each other and ran for the emergency stairs. Sarah pressed her hands against Jake's wound, trying to stop the bleeding. "Stay with me, Jake. Help is coming." Jake looked up at her face. She was crying. "My daughter," he whispered. "Mia. She's at my mom's house. If something happens to me..." "Nothing is going to happen to you," Sarah said firmly. "You're going to be fine. You have to be fine." Jake smiled weakly. "You're safe. That's what matters." Then everything went dark. Jake woke up 3 days later in the hospital. His chest hurt, but he was alive. The first thing he saw was Sarah sitting in a chair next to his bed. She looked tired, like she hadn't slept. "You're awake," she said, relief clear in her voice. "Sarah? What are you doing here?" "I've been here every day," she said. "The doctor said you were very lucky. The bullet missed your heart by 2 inches. Jake tried to sit up, but pain shot through his chest. "Mia. Where is Mia?" "She's fine. She's with your mother. I've been making sure they have everything they need." Jake was confused. "Why would you do that?" "I'm just the janitor." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. Jake, you saved my life. You took a bullet for me. You're not just anything. You're a hero. Jake shook his head. I'm not a hero. I'm just a dad trying to do right by his kid. That's exactly what makes you a hero, Sarah said softly. Over the next few days, Sarah visited Jake every day. She brought him books, good food from expensive restaurants, and updates about the police catching the 3 men who attacked them. But more than that, she listened to Jake talk about his life. About how hard it had been raising Mia alone. About working 2 jobs to pay for their small apartment. About wanting to give his daughter a better life but not knowing how. Jake, Sarah said on his last day in the hospital, I want to offer you something. You don't owe me anything, Jake replied. Yes, I do. You risked your life for mine. But this isn't about owing you. This is about wanting to help someone who deserves it. Sarah pulled out a folder. I want to offer you a job. Head of security for my company. The salary is 10 times what you make now. Jake stared at her. Sarah, I appreciate it, but I don't know anything about security. You know the most important thing, she said. You know how to protect people. You proved that when you protected me. But I don't have any training, any education. We'll provide the training. Jake, I've been thinking about this for 3 days. You have something that can't be taught. You have courage. You have integrity. You care more about doing what's right than about what's safe. Jake was quiet for a long moment. What about Mia? There's a great school near the office. And health insurance that will cover both of you completely. Jake, I'm not just offering you a job. I'm offering you and Mia a chance at a different life. 2 months later, Jake stood in his new office, wearing a suit that Sarah had helped him pick out. It still felt strange, but good strange. Through his window he could see the city below. His city, but from a very different view now. There was a knock on his door. Come in, Jake called. Mia ran into the room, her school backpack bouncing on her shoulders. Daddy? Guess what happened at school today? Jake smiled. Every day Mia came to his office after school. Sarah had set up a small area with books and games where Mia could do her homework while Jake finished his work. What happened, sweetheart? Mrs. Peterson said I might skip a grade. She says I'm really smart. Jake hugged his daughter tight. The new school was amazing. Mia was learning things Jake had never dreamed of. She was making friends, joining clubs, discovering talents she never knew she had. I'm so proud of you, Jake said. Is Miss Sarah here today? Mia asked. I drew her a picture. She's in a meeting, but I'm sure she'd love to see it later. Mia had taken to Sarah immediately. Sarah, who had never had children of her own, seemed to love spending time with Mia. She helped with homework, took them to museums on weekends, and always remembered Mia's favorite ice cream flavor. As months passed, Jake discovered he was good at his new job. His years of working in the building had taught him things about security that others missed. He knew every entrance, every blind spot, every person who belonged and who didn't. But more than that, the employees respected him. They knew his story. They knew he had risked his life to save their CO. When Jake made suggestions about safety, people listened. Sarah and Jake worked together every day, and Jake began to see sides of her that others didn't. Behind the strong CO was a woman who worked too hard, worried too much, and sometimes forgot to eat lunch. You should go home, Jake would tell her when she stayed too late. I have work to finish, she would reply. The work will be there tomorrow. You need rest. Slowly Sarah began to listen. She started leaving at reasonable hours. She took weekends off. She seemed happier, more relaxed. One evening, as they were both getting ready to leave, Sarah said, Jake, can I ask you something? Of course. How do you do it? How do you always stay so positive when you've been through so much? Jake thought about the question. I learned something when Lisa died. Bad things happen to everyone. But we get to choose what we do next. I could have been angry at the world. Instead, I chose to focus on the good things I still had. Like Mia. Sarah nodded thoughtfully. You've taught me that. Before you, I thought success meant working all the time, making more money, beating the competition. Now I realize success means having people you care about and who care about you. It was Mia who noticed it first, the way children often do. Daddy, she said one evening as Jake was making dinner in their new apartment, do you like Miss Sarah? Jake almost dropped the pot he was holding. Of course I like her, honey. She's our friend. No, Daddy. Do you like her like you liked Mommy? Jake sat down at the kitchen table, his heart beating fast. Mia, why would you ask that? Because you smile different when she's around. And she smiles different when you're around. And when we go places together, it feels like we're a family. Jake looked at his 7-year-old daughter, amazed at her wisdom. How would you feel about that? If I did like Miss Sarah that way? Mia climbed onto his lap. I think Mommy would want you to be happy. And Miss Sarah makes you happy. She makes me happy too. She does. Yes, she's nice to me. She helps me with my hard math homework. And she bought me the pretty dress for the school play. Mia paused. Do you think she likes us back? Jake hugged his daughter close. I don't know, sweetheart. Miss Sarah is very important and successful. She could have anyone she wants. But Daddy, you're important too. You saved her life. And you take care of me. And you make the best pancakes in the world. Jake laughed despite his confusion. Those are good qualities, I suppose. They are. Miss Sarah told me once that the best people are the ones who help others even when it's hard. That's you, Daddy. The next day at work, Jake couldn't stop thinking about what Mia had said. Was it possible that Sarah felt something for him too? They had become close friends, but could it be more? Jake was reviewing security reports when Sarah knocked on his office door. Do you have a minute? She asked. Always, Jake replied, gesturing to the chair across from his desk. Sarah sat down, but she seemed nervous. Jake, I need to tell you something, and I hope it doesn't make things awkward between us. Jake's heart started beating faster. What is it? These past few months working with you, getting to know you and Mia, it's changed me. You've changed me. Sarah took a deep breath. I think I'm falling in love with you. Jake stared at her, hardly believing what he was hearing. Sarah continued quickly, I know we're from different worlds. I know people might think it's strange, the CEO and the former janitor. I know you might not feel the same way, and that's okay. I just needed you to know. Jake stood up and walked around his desk. He knelt down beside Sarah's chair and took her hands in his. Sarah, he said softly, I've been in love with you for months. I just didn't think someone like you could ever love someone like me. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. Someone like you? Jake, you're the best man I've ever known. You're kind, brave, honest, and the most wonderful father. You've shown me what really matters in life. Are you sure? Jake asked. I don't have money or fancy education. I'm just a regular guy trying to do his best. That's exactly why I love you, Sarah said, touching his face gently. You're real. You care about people, not things. You've taught me that the most important success is having people you love. 6 months later, Jake stood in the small church where he and Lisa had gotten married 8 years earlier. But today was different. Today he was marrying Sarah. Mia stood beside him as his best person, wearing the beautiful white dress Sarah had bought for her. She was holding the rings and trying not to fidget. Sarah walked down the aisle in a simple white dress, her face glowing with happiness. When she reached Jake, she whispered, Are you ready for this? I've been ready since the day you sat beside my hospital bed, he whispered back. The ceremony was small. Jake's mother was there, crying happy tears. Sarah's parents had flown in from California. A few close friends from work attended. But the most important people were there, Jake, Sarah, and Mia. When it came time for vows, Jake spoke first. Sarah, 6 months ago you offered to change my life. But you did more than that. You gave me hope again. You showed me that love doesn't end when we lose someone, it just makes room for new love. You've made me a better man and given Mia a mother who loves her completely. Sarah's vows brought tears to everyone's eyes. Jake, when you stepped between me and that gun, you didn't just save my life. You saved my soul. You taught me what courage looks like. You showed me that the best people are often the ones the world overlooks. You and Mia have given me the family I never knew I wanted and now can't live without. When the minister said, You may kiss the bride, Jake felt like the luckiest man in the world. 1 year later, Jake was in his office when Sarah burst through the door, her face glowing with excitement. Jake, guess what? What? He asked, laughing at her enthusiasm. The adoption papers came through. Officially, I'm now Mia's legal mother. Jake jumped up and hugged his wife. They had been working on the adoption since their wedding, wanting to make their family official in every way. Does Mia know? Jake asked. She's waiting outside. I thought we should tell her together. They called Mia into the office. She was now 8 and seemed to grow smarter every day. Mia, Sarah said, kneeling down to the little girl's level, I have some special news. The judge has decided that I can officially be your mom now. Mia threw her arms around Sarah. Does this mean I can call you Mom instead of Miss Sarah? If you want to, Sarah said, tears in her eyes. I want to, Mia said firmly. But sometimes I might still call you Miss Sarah because that's how we started. That's perfect, Sarah laughed. Jake watched his wife and daughter hug and felt his heart fill with gratitude. Life had taken away his first wife, but it had given him a second chance at happiness. 2 years after their wedding, Sarah had a surprise for Jake. She called him into her office one afternoon, looking nervous and excited at the same time. "Jake, sit down. I have something to tell you." Jake sat down worried. "Is everything okay?" "More than okay." Sarah took his hands. "We're going to have a baby." Jake stared at her. "A baby?" "A baby," Sarah confirmed, smiling widely. Jake jumped up and spun Sarah around the office. "We're having a baby?" he shouted. "Sure." Sarah laughed. "I don't want the whole building to know yet." "How far along are you?" 3 months. "I wanted to be sure before I told you." Jake sat back down, overwhelmed with joy. "What did Mia say?" "I haven't told her yet. I wanted to tell you first." That evening they sat Mia down for another family meeting. "Mia," Sarah said, "how would you feel about having a little brother or sister?" Mia's eyes got wide. "Really? I'm going to be a big sister?" "Yes," Jake said, hugging her. "What do you think about that?" Mia was quiet for a moment, thinking seriously. "I think the baby is very lucky," she said finally. "Why?" Sarah asked. "Because they'll have the best daddy in the world and the best mommy in the world. And the best big sister too." Jake and Sarah both laughed, their hearts full of love for this wise little girl. As Sarah's pregnancy progressed, Jake often found himself thinking about how much his life had changed. 5 years ago, he had been a janitor barely making ends meet, worried about giving his daughter a good future. Now he was head of security at a major company, married to a woman he loved deeply, with a daughter who was thriving and another child on the way. But the most important change wasn't in what he had. It was in what he had learned. He had learned that heroes aren't people with superpowers or fancy titles. Heroes are ordinary people who choose to do the right thing when it matters. He had learned that love doesn't run out. Loving Sarah didn't mean loving Lisa less. Having another child wouldn't mean loving Mia less. Love grows when it's shared. He had learned that sometimes the worst moments lead to the best outcomes. If those men hadn't attacked Sarah, Jake would never have met her properly. He would still be cleaning offices and she would still be working alone. "What are you thinking about?" Sarah asked one evening as they sat on their couch, her head on his shoulder, her hand on her growing belly. "Just how crazy life is," Jake said. "How one moment can change everything. Do you ever regret it? Taking that bullet?" Jake looked at Mia, who was sitting on the floor doing a puzzle. He thought about the baby growing inside Sarah. He thought about their beautiful home, their happy marriage, their bright future. "Never," he said firmly. "Best decision I ever made. Even though you got shot? Especially because I got shot. If I hadn't been hurt, you might not have realized how much you cared about me." Sarah laughed. "I think I would have figured it out eventually. Maybe. But this way was faster." 6 months later, Jake stood in the hospital room, holding his newborn son. The baby was tiny and perfect, with Sarah's dark hair and Jake's blue eyes. "He's beautiful," Mia whispered, standing on her tiptoes to see her new brother. "He looks just like his daddy," Sarah said from the hospital bed, tired but happy. "What should we name him?" Jake asked. They had discussed names for months but hadn't decided on one. "I have an idea," Mia said quietly. "Can we name him after Mommy Lisa? Like use her name somehow?" Jake felt tears in his eyes. Even at 9 years old, Mia understood that their new happiness didn't erase their old love. "We could use Lee," Sarah suggested. "It's similar to Lisa." "Lee Thompson-Shin," Jake said, trying it out. Sarah had kept her last name professionally, but they had hyphenated for their family. "I like it," Mia said. "Hi baby Lee. I'm your big sister." As Jake held his son with his wife and daughter beside him, he thought about the journey that had brought them here. It had started with violence and fear, but it had led to love and joy. Jake stood at the window of his office, watching the city below. It was the same view he'd had for 7 years now, but he never got tired of it. "Daddy?" a voice called from the doorway. Jake turned to see 4-year-old Lee running into his office, followed by 13-year-old Mia. "How was school today?" Jake asked, scooping Lee up in his arms. "Good. I learned about dinosaurs," Lee said excitedly. "And I got an A on my science project," Mia added proudly. "That's wonderful. Where's your mom?" "In her office talking to important people," Lee said seriously. Jake laughed. Sarah was in a board meeting, but she would be out soon. They had a family dinner planned at their favorite restaurant. "Can we go see the place where you saved Mom?" Lee asked suddenly. "Lee," Mia scolded. "That's not a fun place to visit." "It's okay," Jake said. "He's just curious." Jake had told both children the story of how he and Sarah met, in age-appropriate ways. They knew Daddy had helped Mommy when bad men tried to hurt her. They knew that's how their family started. The important thing isn't where it happened, Jake explained to his son. The important thing is that sometimes when we help other people, good things happen to us too. Like getting a family? Lee asked. Exactly like getting a family. Sarah appeared in the doorway, having finished her meeting. Ready for dinner, everyone? As they walked through the office building together, Jake and Sarah holding hands, Mia carrying her backpack, Lee chattering about dinosaurs, Jake marveled at how normal it all felt now. But it had taken time to feel normal. There had been challenges. People who questioned whether the former janitor belonged in the executive suite. Board members who wondered if Sarah's judgment was clouded by emotion. Reporters who wanted to turn their love story into a sensational headline. Through it all, they had supported each other. Jake had learned to be confident in his new role. Sarah had learned to balance work and family. Mia had adjusted to having a stepmother and then a baby brother. And little by little, they had built something beautiful together. What are you thinking about? Sarah asked as they waited for the elevator. Just remembering, Jake said. The day we met? All of it. The scary parts and the good parts. Any regrets? Jake looked at his family, his brilliant wife, his amazing daughter, his curious son. He thought about their house full of laughter, their dinner table conversations, their weekend adventures. None, he said firmly. Not a single one. As the elevator doors closed and they headed down to start another evening together, Jake reflected on the lesson he'd learned. Sometimes the most ordinary people are called to do extraordinary things. And sometimes, those extraordinary moments lead to the most ordinary, wonderful lives. He had been just a janitor trying to do the right thing. But that choice to step between danger and an innocent person had changed everything. It had saved Sarah's life, but more than that, it had saved his own. Because before that day, Jake had been surviving. Now he was truly living. And that, he thought as he listened to his family's happy chatter, made every risk worth taking.